Coming up on Havers.
Can we play a game where you dispel some misconceptions about government?
So I've always done things that I knew I was good at, but that made me miss out on so many things that I could have done. Who knows? Like,
if you had to get rid of one race, who would it be? So for people who are just tuning in, she is married. She gave me her number for media reasons, not for anything sneaky or whatever, for your husband out there, whatever, if he's listening to this. But again, okay, so let me introduce you again because we weren't recording. Representative, where do you go? What's your title?
State Representative.
State Representative Tram Nguyen, also known as Tram if you're white, or Chum if you're Vietnamese, right?
Perfect.
What's the inflection? Up, down?
Chum with the hat.
Okay, when I say okay, well, yeah, you're Vietnamese. You got it all. We'll recap the intro because we just missed it all. But yeah, so first ever Vietnamese woman in the House of Representatives of Massachusetts, in a loving relationship of at least, what, 2 years?
I'm married 2 years, but
Okay.
we've been together 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then you are one of the more, I would say, more well put together Vietnamese women I've seen in the last 6 to 7 days. So
Where have you been?
I don't know, man. I guess Chicago. There were some.
Okay.
There was some more ratchet types out there. A couple ABGs, which I love. You know, we do love those on here, and we have a lot of fans of ABGs on the podcast. We have Andrew here, the producer.
I'm the number one fan.
Number one fan, but he is yet to be victimized. So anybody out there who is an ABG or knows an ABG that is willing to ruin somebody's life, just reach out.
For free.
Yeah,
I'll
DM
take
us, DM me, DM him, whatever. We'll make it
This is
happen.
how cool I am that this is today, literally. Half an hour before was when I learned what ABG means.
Yeah, but it's like you just found out the word for it, but you've known your whole life what it is. Like you've experienced that type of person, right?
I feel as though my 20s was very fun.
Yeah.
Some semblance of that.
No,
going
Wait, you
on
were
there.
ABG back in the day?
Adjacent.
ABG adjacent. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into your past on that note, actually. And I think for any Vietnamese conversation, we got to start with family and how we got here, right? So my parents were immigrants during the war. I know. So your family came over post-war, but your father, it was related, right? So there was a whole prisoner and just torture and all that shit. So
He was
can
a
you walk
prisoner
into
of
that?
war. Yeah, absolutely. So I came in 92 as political refugees with my family when I was 5, and my
What does
father.
it mean? What are political refugees? Because a lot of people are idiots on this show.
Oh, absolutely. So essentially, we were given permission to come here because my father served with the Americans during the Vietnam War. Then after the communists took over, he was in the re-education camp, which is like forced labor, hard labor camp for 8 years. And so that was throughout the 80s. And then, or the 70s and 80s. And then he came out, and I was born in the mid 80s. And then we came over by plane with the refugee visa to come to
you
the
were
US.
one of the fancy types, the plane people.
Not the boat people, yes.
Okay.
And but I mean, hey,
Right.
they struggled, and they kind of paved the way for all of us here, right?
I mean, even still. So, I mean, do you know any of the details of the re-education camp? Because that kind of story, like my grandfather was also in the Southern military, and
Yeah.
same situation. I've heard some wild stuff. So, do you have anything that you've heard from your father?
Yeah, absolutely. My father is my hero, so I love him. And he was part of the special forces through the police department. And essentially, 8 years is a long time. So he's further, like, higher ranking than most.
Right.
And so during that time, he was telling me how they moved from one concentration camp to the next, all in the woods. And he saw friends and others he knew die from malnutrition, from having to dig up mines and bombs that were left behind from the war. And so it's pretty traumatic for him, especially because during that time he was in his early 20s all the way into his early 30s. So imagine that, losing your entire 20s, being in such a horrible situation. And his mom had to support him throughout that whole time. And unfortunately, after he got out, about a year later, she passed away.
Damn.
And so he really, regretted not being able to have all that time with his mother. And so we came over in the early 90s with nothing. And I'm just so proud of like how much he was able to give me and my two younger sisters. And the life that we have right now would not have been possible without my parents. And I'm sure you can relate too. Their sacrifices give us what we have today, right? And so our stories are just so important for others to know.
Of course, of course. And do you know what the decision point was for him to come to the U.S.? Like, was that something he was like, as soon as I get out, we're going? Or was it kind of a hard decision at the time?
So they didn't start this program. So essentially the refugee program started in about 89 or 90, and we came in 92. And so he had about 2 years to make that decision. And I tell this story all the time that we could have gone anywhere. We actually thought about going to Canada because my aunt was living in, well, she's still living in Montreal at the time, and she was petitioning for our family to come to Montreal. And he had heard of Massachusetts. He heard that Harvard was here. And so he made the decision to come here. And I have to say that one of his biggest disappointment was when I was waitlisted at Harvard and didn't actually get in for undergrad.
Well, getting waitlisted is still a big achievement, I think.
But you know, to him,
it's usually, true.
To him, it was like, but I finally gave my dad what he wanted. I just graduated from the Kennedy School 2 weeks ago.
Oh, true, you did. Wow.
And gave my dad the Harvard degree.
Amazing.
And he has all of my degrees. It's like, I don't think that I would have any of this without, whether the undergrad, the law degree, or now my master's degree without my parents. And so I give them all of it.
Hell yeah, that's so beautiful, man. And so when did you guys, when you came here initially, where did you go straight to? Well, no, it was like Lawrence, right?
Yeah, like Lawrence, Massachusetts, right here. My aunt and uncle who were living in Montreal had their really good friends living here, and so we when we came to Massachusetts, we were living with them for a little bit, and they were our sponsor family. And then we got our apartment. We were living in public housing in Lawrence, and then eventually my parents bought the home in Methuen where they still live now. And I grew up in Methuen starting from 7th grade up until high school, and then went off to college.
Okay. Yeah, no, first of all, I actually have family up in Montreal too. That's pretty funny. Is there like a lot of Vietnamese people out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Toronto. French? Yeah, but so my aunt and uncle, they speak fluent French.
Yeah. We don't like them.
I hate them.
Yeah, he really doesn't like the French.
Well, my aunt's visiting me right now. She came for the graduation. Yeah.
Actually, we do like Montreal people. It's just French people in general. I think he just doesn't like French food, actually.
Well, let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that.
But no, I mean, I think there's like always bitterness with the French and the Vietnamese, right? Because it's like, oh, they colonized us, whatever. But they gave us so much. I'm saying exactly, buddy. Yeah, exactly.
So
there's a theory that pho is actually a French dish, because there's a French There's a French dish called pot au pho, which is a beef soup. And so, like, the name plus the beef soup part and onion and everything, like, people are just like, oh, it makes too much sense. It's like too coincidental.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And so, if you bring a beef soup to a bunch of Asians, they're going to put noodles in it, right?
Yes.
And so, like, that might be how that became a thing.
I did not know that, but I wouldn't say that too publicly.
Yeah. That was also research. That was research that my producer Andrew did. So I don't even know.
Good job, Andrew.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Encyclopedia. I don't use Wikipedia anymore. Yeah. I read it all.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. He's only real news with him. What were we talking about?
I like food-related news. So, yeah, I mean, give me more of that. Origin of food. I mean, the Chinese and Italians have been fighting over spaghetti and noodles for the longest time, right? And so,
okay. Well, then, what's your thoughts on like, who has better dumplings? Is it the Italians or the Asians? Italians would be like raviolis. Right?
I was like, well,
yeah.
I am all about the Asian food. As a foodie, I love Asian food.
Okay, then which is
all
the best
cuisines.
Asian dumpling?
Oh, wow, that's tough. All different.
So we got soup.
I know. And then we have like the wonton has so many different variations, right?
I love a
good
spicy
wonton soup is something to die for.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm biased. I grew up on Vietnamese food, so always top of the list. But honestly, all types of Asian food.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I have no prejudice against any Asian food.
If you were to genocide one ethnicity of Asian food, what would it be?
Oh no, that's such a tough decision.
If you could get rid of that entire cuisine off the face of the earth,
absolutely
and
not.
You and no one else could ever have it ever again.
No.
What would it be?
No, I would not do any
she
of
says
that.
It
That's
would be
a
the Chinese.
shame. No, that's a shame.
I heard it too. I heard it too.
No.
Fusion.
No.
Oh, you would get rid of fusion? Did you say you would get rid of fusion? You hate fusion? There's a lot of people that share that view, and I'm not saying it's like a bad one or whatever. I'm just, what are you thinking? Yeah, but if you think about it, like everything kind of was fusion at some point, right?
Right.
And so, does killing fusion mean we're killing progress? I'm just being devil's advocate here. I don't know.
That's dark. That's deep.
No, I'm kidding. A lot of people do hate it though. Ron, especially our friend Ron. You say fusion around him, that's worse than the other F word, the gay one for you. But on Pride Month too. Happy Pride Month. Yeah. Were we talking about the Chinese? Oh yeah, when you came here from Lawrence or to Lawrence, I want you to take us back because we see you now. You got great posture. You've got good jewelry and the hair. You like not a hair out of place.
I need to hang out with you more often. I don't get these compliments very often.
Well, I appreciate that. Just wait. So
he's starting out soft.
Yeah, exactly. But I think people like to hear the story of how it's easy to see success and be like, it's always been like this, right? But obviously, especially with immigrants, it was a struggle. And can you take us back to when you were a young 13, 14, how old were you when you came here? 5-year-old, prepubescent, young woman, girl, fully clothed, and you came to this country and you had dreams or not dreams or whatever. Were you getting bullied or what was happening with you at the time?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember very vividly, right? I came in January. So you can imagine coming from Vietnam to January in Massachusetts was quite jarring in so many ways, whether it's, the weather, the people, the culture, not knowing the language. And so I remember so vividly my family at the time. It was my parents, myself, and my younger sister. I was 5. She was 3 at the time. And we came when it was snowing out. And I remember I was wearing a yellow sweater with Ninja Turtles on it. And we didn't have coats or anything. We did, you hear that it's cold, but I don't think you know what it's like until you're here in the middle of January. And I remember snowing coming down, and it was just such. It's so memorable in so many ways because even at 5 years old, I realized what a drastic change that was. And then we came to live with the host family, and they tried, to help us adjust, but having flushing toilets was very different. And at the time, my sister was 3 years old, and she was still in diapers, and we didn't know about diapers, and so she kept, we had to learn all of that. And my parents, I really have to give them so much credit of shielding us from so much of this, and they had to learn English themselves as well, taking classes at community college. And I came in, started the first grade. Coming in at 5 years old, I didn't know what the teachers were saying. You had to learn how to say, I need to eat, I'm hungry, or I need to use the bathroom. All of these things were so daunting to me at the time. And we came with nothing, like I said, so the communists took everything from us. And so it was a challenging time. My parents worked multiple jobs with very little benefits. I remember my dad delivering pizza, delivering Chinese food. My mom just really working any type of jobs that she could get. And I started, not knowing what to do at school, but then very quickly learning how to speak English from TV. Or, and from my teachers, I have to say, I have to really give credit to my elementary school teachers, who are these wonderful, caring people. And at the time in Lawrence, I went to the Weatherby School. They actually had a Vietnamese teacher teaching bilingual education so that we can learn both Vietnamese and English at the time. And that was very helpful. And then by the time I want to say 4th, 5th grade, I was fluent. I became a straight A student and then graduated at the top of my high school class. And I guess the rest is history.
That's crazy. So what, do you have a memory of, I guess, the early days where you were like, dude, this country sucks? Or were you always like, this is way better than Vietnam?
always had the mentality that this is way better than Vietnam because we lived in absolute poverty.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to you that my dad served in the re-education camp, but what most people don't realize is that when you come out of these, as a prisoner of war, you actually have a criminal record.
Right.
You're listed as enemy of the state, which means that you can't get a job. You couldn't really make a living for yourself or your family. And so my dad was just doing anything he could to give us food and, shelter. And so I've always known that this is so much better than what I had. But at the same time, to your point about racism, like I remember so many people telling me to go back to where I came from. Or even in the first grade, I had this girl, and I'll forever remember her name, Elizabeth Brown, who used to just... Yes,
fuck Elizabeth.
Absolutely.
What'd you say? Elizabeth Warren? What?
No, Elizabeth
You
Brown.
heard it here first. State Representative Tram Nguyen says fuck Elizabeth Warren.
Well, were we the same age?
Yeah.
But she is my birthday twin, by the way,
cool.
so she's great. She
Nice.
calls me every year on my birthday, so shout out
cute.
to Elizabeth.
Yeah, shout out Elizabeth Warren. But fuck Elizabeth Brown. She's the worst.
But she used to make fun of me for not being able to pronounce certain words.
What was tough for you, word-wise?
The difference between worm and warm. I couldn't say that, like the worm and warm.
Yeah.
So she would ask me, what's the weather like? And I would say it's warm outside. And she's like, ha, ha, ha. And I don't want to encourage violence, but...
Did you get your Vietnamese cousin
I remember very vividly during recess one time, she and her friends, they had a posse. It was like, mean girl situation. And she kept coming up to me to tease me and, make me feel bad. And rather than crying, I pushed her down a small hill.
Nice. Hell yeah. Yeah.
And, my dad, they called my dad in and said, oh, Tram pushed someone down a hill. And my dad's like, why are you taking me out of my work for this?
The communists made me eat my own feces.
Like, what do you mean? She's standing up for herself. And I think that really is so empowering because, I've always had my parents' back and they have encouraged me to stand up for myself, even at that early age, because they're like, why? I'm working 3 jobs. You're making me take time out of my work because this girl was bullying my daughter and you want her to just eat it? I don't think so. And so I think that you can influence kids so much just by those, little moments that I remember so vividly. Now that's why I do what I do.
Wow, that's amazing. So that moment when you were victimized by Elizabeth Brown, that's why you now are so, you're so inspired to take down the whites, huh?
Inspired to take down abusers and people who... hurt others. Yeah. And even before I became elected official, I was a lawyer. I did legal services. And so I stood up for marginalized communities my entire career.
Well, so you didn't know what the hell you wanted to do when you grew up, right? You went to...
No, I wanted to be a doctor.
Right. And
my whole life.
Okay, so then what was the change there? And was it really you wanting to be a doctor, or was it your dad or your mom?
My dad.
Yeah.
You know it well.
Yeah,
my dad's like, so I never got to go to college. He said I had to drop out of college because of the war. He was going to be a doctor. And he's like, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a great doctor. And then I came into college and I was like, oh, we have a little problem. Tram is scared of blood.
Ooh.
I fainted at the sight of blood. And I was like, probably not a good idea to be a doctor.
Are you still afraid of blood?
Yes. I'm like that kid who can't get shots without...
Oh, yeah.
Like even now as a grown woman, I was like, no.
I passed out a few times last year getting blood drawn.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we can relate.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It happened once. Like it never happened before. And it randomly happened one time. Yeah. And then after that, I got in my head. And then like subsequently, I think 3 times after that in a row, I'd be passed out.
Okay, but so you can't be a doctor either.
No, I can't. Oh, hell no. But I think I'd be sued for malpractice immediately. Actually, I got kicked out. So I originally was going to be a physical therapist because I also was not smart enough to be a doctor. And then I went to PT school for a year or so, and I got kicked out for touching the patients inappropriately.
I'm glad you're not arrested.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
No, they weren't real patients. They were mannequins.
Okay.
But yeah, or cadavers, whatever.
Like dead people?
Yeah. In the anatomy lab, we had to like learn the body parts.
I'm actually worried for you, Christian.
Yeah. Well, no, not sexually.
Okay.
It's just like not by protocol.
I see.
Right? Because I just wanted to feel what like a dead person's skin felt like. So you're not allowed to stroke again above the waist. Okay. I was just a very, very platonic like shoulder rub.
Oh, okay.
I just want to know: is it hard? Is it soft? Is it cold?
You're a curious individual.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. I mean, there was another girl who got real deep in there and started flinging the cadaver bits, and they got in all of the backstory, like gross anatomy.
Where did you go to school?
I shouldn't put this out there actually, but the lab is in the basement. It's real dark. It smells like formaldehyde and everything. So we have all these like post undergrads standing around this table, and then the TA is showing us the dead body part, like human anatomy on the dead body, right? And so she has this little like pointer, and she's like, all right, this is the like brachial plexus is like a bunch of nerves in the shoulder, and she's like da da da, and then she goes, oh my bad, and then like a piece of what do you call it, like human remain just like flung and hit me in the hair. And so that's when I was like, I can't do this shit.
That traumatized you. Okay, I got it. That's your anti-hero story.
Yeah. I don't know why we're talking about this. Oh yeah, because of doctors.
But all Asian parents want their kids to be doctors for some reason. It's kind of bizarre.
It's all
I don't
they know.
understand why.
They only know 2 words. They watch General Hospital, and then they learn like that's the only profession they know. What it's like: doctor,
lawyer, engineer.
Exactly. It's like, oh yeah, I know those ones. They're like, they know police, but they don't want us to be police because it's dangerous or whatever. But yeah. So your dad wanted you to be a doctor. You went to school at what, Tufts?
Tufts, yeah.
And then you were just like, well, no, you got like some internship, right?
Yeah, so I got an internship during my time at Tufts. And mind you, I switched my majors 8 times. So it took me a while to kind of get my bearings on things. But I actually encourage that. I talk to college students all the time to say, like, you know what? College is the time for you to explore. You don't know what's out there. And to your point, especially immigrant families, our parents know literally like 5 professions, right? And so it's good to explore, and that was exactly what I did. And I discovered that I was very good at talking, and so one of my professors said, you might as well get paid for it, so maybe consider law school.
Well, was that pre or post internship?
So that was during the internship when, I was working at Greater Boston Legal Services, where I actually ended up working as an attorney eventually. But I got an internship there and really learned how to use the law to advocate for people who need it most. And honestly, what I knew about the law was from like Law and Order and all these shows on TV. I had no idea that, being a lawyer meant, or all the different types of law that you could do. And so I was really never interested in it because I don't think I was ever interested in like criminal law or corporate law. But then I saw how they could use the law to advocate for marginalized communities or work on legislation that could help marginalized communities, and that got me hooked. And so I then decided I was going to think about law school, but I didn't go to law school right away. I worked for the Census Bureau for the 2010 census, and that was when I really got to know the community because I speak Vietnamese. Right. I was the partnership specialist for the Vietnamese community, which meant I got to go into the community, talk to community groups, community leaders, getting to know why they're so hesitant to work, to participate in the census. And I worked to build that trust so that we could build more of more participation in the Vietnamese community. And that's so important.
Where was this, like geographically?
In Dorchester.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I was working here in the census for 2010 in Massachusetts, and the lead person essentially for the Vietnamese community, particularly in the Dorchester area. And we just got to work to explain to people why it's so important. Like, this is how we get federal funding. You need to participate because it shows that we have political power and that we have a presence here, and people can take us seriously when they know that there's a large percentage of Vietnamese Americans living in the state. And so in doing that work, it really got me interested in grassroots building and community building, and what does it mean to have these conversations and get people to be politically engaged. And then I became a lawyer, started working on a lot of issues like labor rights and employment law, because I saw how my parents were taken advantage of when they were early immigrants who really didn't know the language, didn't know their rights. And so I started working on those issues. And then I also saw how, unfortunately, like any other community, we have a lot of domestic violence in our community as well. And that was really a lot of my work, was to make sure that I protect survivors, giving them the representation that they need in the courtroom, whether that's with divorces or restraining order or getting their immigration status.
Wow. Yeah. So it seems like there's been a thread throughout your life where you're just like, how can I service people, I guess, and maybe like that's what drew you to the doctor thing in the beginning, and then you quickly realized there's other ways to do that, and then you pivoted when you had that experience in your internship. What I guess like for people who don't know what they really want to do with their lives, like what would you say to pay attention to try to figure that out for yourself? Like, and what other tips might you have?
I want to say take risks or experiment. And I tell this to young people all the time because I went through this. I have always been risk averse. So I've always done things that I knew I was good at, but that made me miss out on so many things that I could have done. Who knows? Like, could have been something else, but I did, I was very good at school. So I concentrated on that. I was good at tennis. So I concentrated on that, but I wanted to play volleyball, but I was like, it's funny, earlier you were like, oh, you're tall. I'm like, I'm 5'3". I'm not that tall.
I think you just have tall energy.
I do. The people do say that. What I lack in height, I make up in my tone and my volume. But so I didn't do a lot of things because I didn't want to fail, right? But I think for young people, it's just as important to know what you're good at as well as what you're not good at, because you never know what you could do unless you try it. And I give this example all the time that I never wanted to run for office in the first place, but I made that leap of faith, and it has brought me to where I am today. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without, taking that risk, taking that plunge, and risking potentially losing, because I'm sure you've seen that I represent Andover, North Andover, Tewksbury, and Boxford, predominantly white community. I'm the first person of color to ever represent that community. So when I ran, they said I had a very low percentage of winning, but I did it anyway, thinking I was going to lose, but then I won.
Wow. And you dethroned like a old white Republican guy, right?
A very far right Tea Partier who was anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant. He wanted to ban abortion in this lifetime. So essentially very far right, even more right than most Republicans in this area. And so I think that people need to understand that even in Massachusetts, we have folks like that. He wanted police officers to stop anyone who looks illegal. That was something he filed. And I was like, weird. You want to legalize racial profiling. How interesting. And then so I decided to run it against him. And it was just such a great race in that we brought community members out who've never been involved before and got them engaged and excited about the race. And I was so proud to win with 55% of the votes when they said I had a 30% chance of winning.
That's incredible. Yeah, congratulations on that for sure. We'll get into a little bit more of the work stuff. I know we're being conscious of time too. But before that, Daryl just texted me. He said we all have to take another shot. This is a transition.
I'm fucking bricked right now.
Wait, what are we talking about again? All right, let's get into the community thing. I think is a good one because this is something that's kind of close to me too, in the sense that I have no I had 0%. I had to look up what like a legislature is because I'm just like I don't know anything about the government, and I think that's very common in a lot of communities, specifically a lot of young people, a lot of Vietnamese people, Asian people, generally immigrants, unless they're victimized so much that they feel like they have to kind of make their voices heard. A lot of just regular folk don't really have a lot of awareness about what's going on. So can we play a game where you dispel some misconceptions about government?
Absolutely. But also I 100% agree with you. And I joke with my family all the time that the first time that they ever stepped foot into the State House was when their daughter got sworn in. And also, there's a whole history with that. So just talking about the Vietnamese community, for instance, my dad, after the war ended, was told to come in to check in with the government. And then he was a prisoner of war for 8 years, right? So just think about that mentality. And that was what I learned during my time working for the 2010 census, is that there is a true fear of government because people are not used to government working for them. And so how do we change that? How do we make sure that people know that government is working for them? So I want to talk about how we could dispel some of these misconceptions about government, especially here in America. I mean, we're not perfect, but it is not communist Vietnam. So how do you work with government officials for your benefit?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there are a lot of common things that people think, right? Like, is it true that you guys aren't allowed to have sex?
My husband would disagree with that.
Oh, really? How often do you guys have sex?
I'm not going to say that. No, not going there.
Is it true that you're all like just in it for the money?
We get paid very little.
So you guys are getting bribed by like big pharma and stuff, right?
We are not allowed to do that in Massachusetts. We have strong contribution laws.
Really?
Very much, very limited. So some states have unlimited contributions, but here the maximum is $1,000 per individual. We can't take money from corporations, and PAC can only give us up to $500.
So all this fundraising that you guys are doing, that's not you guys going around asking for bribes and
no,
things?
it's all from people. My legislative aide could attest. She went to one of my events yesterday. It's all regular people, my constituents, yesterday.
And I mean, there was this whole scandal a couple years ago. It came out of that movie, like Spotlight or Searchlight or whatever. It's true, like a lot, or not true? You guys are all kind of like sexual deviants or pedophiles or whatever.
I hope not. At least I'm not. So
I heard that about like some people online. If you go on certain Reddits or YouTube, you'll hear these things. People say, "Oh, the Clintons are all like." They're all trying to touch the youth or whatever, not like impact the youth, but physically.
Do you also believe that they were like running a child trafficking ring?
Well, I don't believe this. I'm not saying I believe this. Yeah,
some Pizzagate situation.
Yeah. So these are the things people hear. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Conspiracy theories.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like a lot of people. That's what they hear about government and politicians. It's like if you ask some random guy. They'll probably say, "Oh yeah, I heard about that," like Pizzagate, but we don't know what the hell's going on in real government. So, like, how would you say? Why should people get involved? How do they get involved? Do they have to DM like somebody? Do they have to? How do you do it?
So, a couple of things to really keep in mind is that there are many different levels of government, right? And unfortunately, most people. They know about the federal level because that's all that's being covered in, whether it's like the papers or TV or elsewhere. State government is very different from that. We are much more in tune with the people because so for instance, in Massachusetts, we have 160 House of Representatives members and 40 senators, so 200 legislators overall. And as a state representative, I represent around 42,000 people. And so we can get to know our community members, and our job is really to let them know what we can do to help them. So, for instance, today, we were helping, right before we came here, we were helping someone with their unemployment to get access to that. And May is my favorite month because it is API Heritage Month. We went around to support Asian or Asian American owned businesses to make sure that people know about them, to elevate them, because we know that they were struggling during the pandemic, and the situation has exacerbated since then. And so we do all of this work to uplift our community, and they have direct access to us, which means that if you call my office, you'll hear from me, you'll hear from Bella, who's my legislative aide, or my legislative director, Tobin. They're the three of us working to help with all of these issues for the people in the 4 towns, and we work on laws to support the state. Like I said, we were working on last week an affordable a housing bond bill, which would invest $6.5 billion to make housing more affordable here in Massachusetts, because we want to be competitive. We want to keep people here. We have so much talent because we have so many universities and other and tech and so many other industries, and we want to make sure that people know that that government can work for them and make their lives better.
I think that's the thing. Like, a lot of people think government's so detached from real people, right? And so what you're saying is that you're really out there. Like, you're talking to real people. You're helping real people, and I think that's something that I'm now kind of realizing is the case, and for most of my life I just didn't even think about, right? I just thought that you guys were in this fancy building over there doing these things, I don't even know, like playing Tetris or whatever, and then just getting paid by big companies.
But actually, so I'm going to give you a prime example for the Vietnamese community specifically, right? Many of our people own nail salons. Oh, yeah. And many of our nail salon workers are contractors or considered contractors, right? So they would not otherwise qualify for unemployment. So during the pandemic, we fought for coverage for Vietnamese people who had to shut down their businesses to get them that coverage. And so many people reached out to our office so that we can help them with that. Mm-hmm. So just imagine that thousands and thousands of people otherwise would not have access to any sort of income at all. Or the Small Business Administration. we helped them to support small businesses, and we made them focus on the Asian American businesses so that they can have access to these resources. And so when you talk about representation, it would not have happened were it not for people who care about the Asian American community.
Yeah. So, we talk about representation a lot. Belly, you mentioned this, right? You said 160, whatever you call it, people.
Members of the House of Representatives.
There's 160 members. How many of those are Asian? How many of them are women?
So we have about 31% women at this time right now, but that could change because many of them are retiring.
It's a pretty horrible ratio.
It is. And then guess how many Asian Americans in the caucus? 7. Total. So there are 4 men, 3 women. I'm the highest ranking Asian American woman right now. And that is exactly why I work so hard to build this pipeline, to make sure that we are bringing in people, young people, especially young women, into the legislature as interns and also as staffers. So, I brought on Bella 2 weeks ago, and she is Asian American, and we're just so happy to be able to bring them in so that they have exposure to government and understand that what representation means.
Why is it important to have Asians there? Like, are you saying that you can't trust white people to do it for you?
No, I say that you want to have people who are connected to the community, who can who looks like the people. I think that to look like the people, I think that you have to see it to be it. And so I can give you an example of, I represent, again, very white community. I think about 92, 93% white. But there are many Asian young girls, particularly. I remember a story when I was coming into an elementary school and I was reading a story. Just, it was regular read-along day. And I saw these 2 young girls. They were shy and they kind of, stood in the back, but then they came up to me. And one of the girls said, I have your same last name, and I've never seen anyone who looks like me in elected office or, as a leader. And that's why representation matters, because I want them to see that they could be a leader in elected office or elsewhere one day because there are others paving the path for them. And so I have many white allies. They're wonderful, and we work very closely with them. But they also don't have the shared lived experience or the knowledge or the connection with communities. Like, that's why the Asian Caucus works very closely with the Asian Business Economic Council to highlight Asian businesses. And we invite our colleagues who are white to come with us to support Asian businesses so they know what's going on. And it's an exciting partnership.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Asian, supporting Asians and whites and allyship, why did you choose a white partner?
Why did I choose a white partner? Yeah. So I don't think I chose a white partner in the sense that, I particularly said, oh, I'm going to date a white person. In fact, up until my mid-20s, I dated Asian men exclusively for a while because I thought it was, my parents don't really speak a lot of English. I thought it'd be easier to date Vietnamese men,
guys, yeah.
But mostly Vietnamese men. And of course, there's a Kevin Nguyen in there. There's that.
Did you actually like a real Kevin Nguyen?
Like a real.
Like his name was actually Kevin, or
yes. His name was Kevin Nguyen.
And are you familiar with the Kevin Nguyen thing?
Yes. So that's why I laughed.
When did you learn about that? Because that's like the ABG of guys.
So I learned about this last month. It was, so I laughed very loudly because I did take.
Was he like what they say about him?
No comment. Maybe he's in California, so it's good. So maybe yes. Yeah. But nevertheless, and so I think that I never intended to, date a white guy, and I'm married to an Irish American man. But we went to high school together. We reconnected 10 years later, and he has been such a great supporter. And I think that I just needed someone who could support my ambition, whether that's like running for office or, going back to grad school 10 years after law school. And he's been a great partner in that. So I don't know if I chose him because of his race, but it's more or less if I needed someone who's a true partner, and that was my.
Are you sure? Were you like burned by too many Vietnamese guys? They were like, I gotta stop dating Viet guys.
I have to say that Viet guys and their families are very traditional, and as you have seen, I am not exactly a traditional Vietnamese girl or woman, and so it was hard.
What sorts of I guess conflicts or friction did that kind of what are you alluding to here? Like,
so I think that they expected me to have very traditional gender roles. And I don't think that I fit that mold in any way. I can give you an example. So I dated a Vietnamese guy when I was in my early 20s. And that was when I was considering law school. And his mom told me, "Why are you pursuing law school? You're going to have a higher degree than my son." And I was like, so? Like, why does that matter? And so I think that has really...
what did the guy say about that? Did he feel like was he also insecure about that? Like you being
I don't know if we've ever had that conversation, but the fact that he didn't defend me said a lot, right? And, you know, I was in my early 20s. I really didn't push the issue, but I think that, I mean, now I would probably have that conversation, but it was very telling when he didn't defend me with his family that, like, she should be able to go to law school. She wants to. Why not? Right. She got a scholarship, and this is what she wants to do. And that has been repeated throughout, you know, my dating history. And I think that, but honestly, I have so much love for Vietnamese men like yourself, right? And so I don't think that that's every Vietnamese guy, but it just happened to be some of the ones that I dated.
Yeah. I think that's probably accurate. I think as a generalization, a lot of traditional values in Vietnamese community. But yeah, I mean, it's. Do you ever miss certain things? Like I don't know. Like there's a, I guess, belief in a lot of cultures that if you're dating white people, they don't understand your culture, right? Do you get that at all?
No, interesting. Like going back to my Kevin Nguyen, he did not like Vietnamese food, and my current husband, who's Irish American, loves Vietnamese food. You can ask him. He's like, I love bún bò Huế. I love pho. I make pho all the time. Wonton soup. You name it, he'll eat it. The only thing he draws a line is like, you know, that bún mắm stuff with the seafood and the really like fermented shrimp. He's like, no.
I mean, even that's a tough one for me too. Do you like that stuff?
I do.
Yeah.
But he does not. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, that's very reasonable. That's very reasonable. Right? Okay, what are your top 5 Viet dishes?
Oh my gosh, so hard. Okay, so pho for sure. Bún bò Huế, bánh xèo. Oh, siu mai, but that's very influenced by, you know, Chinese probably, and banh mi.
That's a very solid list. I would probably say a lot of the same ones. I love bún thịt nướng.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
I like a nice dry, like the noodle soups are great. I'd probably sub out pho for a rice or a bún dish.
Oh, interesting.
Because I love that. I think I'll keep bún bò Huế. I'll keep banh mi, bánh xèo. And I love bún riêu.
Ooh, that's my mom's specialty.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If I could have a 6th, it would be mi sao yang.
What is that?
It's like the fried noodles. Oh, like the mi sao yang, the crispy noodles with
Okay, very good, very good. Yeah. Now you're a real Vietnamese person, man.
I cook too, man.
Do you actually?
Yes, I do. I make a mean pho. I've been competing with my mom.
Oh, that's always a hard competition to win.
For pho, I think. Oh, actually, no, I forgot my signature dish, bánh canh cua.
What is that again?
It's like the Vietnamese, the crab, shrimp, like big noodles type of dish. You know.
I might know it based on smell. But I don't speak Vietnamese that well, so yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay,
yeah, one of those fake
but it's like one of those like seafood types of noodle soup.
Okay, nice.
That's my specialty. I'll make it for you one of these days.
That'd be awesome.
If it works out.
Yeah. I'll swing by.
Let's see how this interview goes.
Yeah. Well, you're doing good. I mean, we only have like 10 minutes left, and you still haven't said anything racist. So I'm failing at my job.
We gotta go a speed round.
Speed round. Okay. What's your least? If you had to get rid of one race, who would it be?
No, absolutely not. Are you kidding me?
What would be the second
race.
No race. No termination of people. Absolutely not. We love all people.
We do. If you could, no, that's not good enough.
Which one's your favorite race?
Are you kidding me? Absolutely
Vietnamese.
not.
I already knew the answer.
Human
It's Vietnamese.
race. The human race.
I like Hispanics personally.
My brother-in-law is Colombian.
Oh,
So
viva la
my,
raza.
so my nieces, who are half Vietnamese and half Colombian, are my favorite people in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to be very outgoing.
They're going to be very attractive when they get 18.
Yeah, so my 2-year-old niece, she's very bossy, and I think that it's from going to events with me. So I had an event yesterday, and she, as I was giving my speech, my sister filmed her. She's like imitating me at 2 years old.
That's cute.
All right, we're going to do a speed round. Not a racism speed round, but
Thank you.
Any questions? Bella, do you have any questions? Do you know her in a work capacity for 2 weeks now? Is there anything about her personally you want to know?
Let me think about this.
I can do one first too if you want to have some time to think. Okay, sounds good. I think one thing that I've always respected about you, knowing you for about maybe 70 to 90 minutes now.
Nice. We saw each other last week.
Exactly. Well, I include that as well because it's like probably 15 minutes there. But is you're very down to earth for a high ranking official, right? And it's like, how important is it for you to maintain connections with the people and the roots, right? Like, is that something you'll ever give up?
No, I would never give that up. And I think that being with people actually empowers me and it energizes me. I want people to feel like their elected officials, particularly me as their elected official, their state representative, is listening to them.
As you get more, I guess, like senior in your career, though, like in corporate, as you climb the ladder, you kind of get further away from what brought you there in the first place. Like, do you have aspirations to climb the whatever political ladder? Like, what are your goals professionally from here?
My goal is to bring more people into the fold. And honestly, it's one of those things where I am building the pipeline because I don't know if I'm going to be here forever. I don't want to be the only or the first forever. And I want to bring folks in like Bella, a young Asian American woman, into this work, and others, because I believe that there is so much room and space to bring the community in. And so my goal is to make sure that people understand that they can run for office if they want to. They can get politically engaged in so many other ways, even if it's not running for office, and that I can be a mentor to them. So that's why we have so many interns who are either Asian American, young folks, people of color, etc., because they need to feel as though they are part of the culture. And the more exposure you have, I think the more they'd be willing to run for office. And so I've been traveling the country doing this exact work because I genuinely believe in representative government. And that means that you have people who look like the people, who share the same experiences with people, and who care about the people. And that's why I have so many events in the community, in the 4 towns that I represent, and giving people that access to me that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear from one of those young people now. Bella, do you have your question?
So I come from a half Chinese family, and I was very privileged to go to a 4-year university, eventually graduate and make it to this position where I am now. But in a time where the political landscape in America is very bleak, and a lot of folks in my generation are feeling that and feeling discouraged about what our voice means. So I guess my question is, what advice do you have to those people? And thinking about the big picture, why is it important to do the work on the local level and be enthusiastic about it as well?
Great question. So my advice is to get on the ladder of engagement. Like I said, it's not just running for office. It's getting engaged with issues that you care about because it truly makes a difference. So I told you about how I ran against a far-right Tea Partier who basically represents everything that I oppose, right? And so if it weren't for young people campaigning for me, volunteering for me, I wouldn't be here today. And so number one, you can make a huge difference. Number two, it is so important for you to think of the big picture, right? No legislator is going to agree with you 100%. I think we all need to accept that. I'm not going to agree with you 100%. I'm not going to agree with even my staffer 100%. But what I encourage them to do is to engage in conversation. Make sure that we're having an open dialogue. Make sure that we are having conversations about what could be improved. And we may disagree on the path of getting there, but if we share the same values and have the same vision, those are the representatives or elected officials that you should support. And frankly, I don't even agree with myself 100% of the time, right? I say this all the time that, you know what? This is why I'm such a strong supporter in lifelong learning. You can always learn from other people, particularly from people you disagree with, because they can give you a different point of view that you have never thought of. And so young people, I encourage you to have these difficult conversations and understand where people are coming from and why they do what they do, because hopefully we'll be able to find common ground to move the needle. But no one's going to agree with you 100% of the time. And so to have that expectation of elected officials is just fool's errand in my mind. What you need to do is to find issues that you care about, find people who support those issues, and work with them to make things better. And it's never going to be like 100% of what you want. But this is what I've learned, both as an attorney who had to work on negotiations, but now as a legislator. The compromise is not a bad word. Compromise is about finding that path forward. And you can't find that path forward without having conversations.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for a great question. We probably should wrap for time reasons. Yeah, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming. Wait, is there anything you want to plug or anything before we wrap up?
No, I want to plug you. I think this is so great. You're making me look cool as someone who has, such a great following, and I want to go hang out and eat food with you because apparently you know where all the good spots are. So
let's definitely hang this. Let's do it off camera so we can be, super whatever racist, because I know you want to be. I know you want to be. Deep down, you want to be racist.
I don't want to be racist. I want to eradicate racism, but I want to have real talk with you.
Who?
Racism.
Damn. I got you. Yeah, but let's definitely hang sometimes. Go out there. What should we do? Go out there and vote? Go out there and
vote. Go out there and get involved. Go out there and support those who support the things that you support. And make sure that this is a very important election year. And I understand that, young people are somewhat discouraged by what's going on, whether that's nationally or even internationally. But this is not a time to sit on the sidelines. And so please reach out to me too, because we're always looking for interns. We're always looking for people to get engaged. And we want to make sure that young folks know that there are folks like me and others who care so much about democracy and preserving our democracy and working with them to save our democracy.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Love seeing Vietnamese people in great places. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Havers. Please subscribe and rate us 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us. And remember, you got it all.